The first time I realized my work had been stolen, I was standing in the break room of St. Mary's Medical Center in Chicago. The TV on the wall was tuned to a local health segment. There, in his polished suit and perfect hair, was Dr. Andrew Carlisle, the hospital's golden boy, smiling at the camera. He was talking about my protocol, the patient care system I had spent months designing, testing, refining. A system that reduced ER wait times by nearly 40%, improved discharge outcomes, and kept people from slipping through the cracks. He was calling it the Carlisle method. I nearly dropped my coffee. I remember every word he said. We've implemented a groundbreaking protocol that I developed, designed to revolutionize patient care in Chicago hospitals. Developed, designed. He didn't just take credit, he erased me completely. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands shook so hard I had to set the coffee down. Nurses around me were clapping, nodding. Wow, Dr. Carlisle is brilliant, one whispered. Brilliant? No, he was a thief. Later that afternoon, I confronted him in the hallway outside the ICU. Andrew, I said, my voice low but sharp, you know that protocol wasn't yours. He turned to me with that smug smile that made my skin crawl. Alara, no one cares who wrote the paperwork. They care who sells it. And I sell it better than you ever could. The audacity of it, saying it so openly, like he'd already won. I felt my throat tighten, rage clawing its way up my chest. You think erasing me makes you untouchable? His smile widened. It makes me indispensable. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there, invisible, in my own hospital. That night, I sat alone in the on-call room, staring at the ceiling tiles. Every memory of sleepless nights working on the protocol flashed back at me. The patients I'd advocated for, the data I'd compiled, the endless battles with admin, and now, all reduced to a footnote that didn't even exist. I whispered to myself, I am not going to let him take this from me. But the hospital system was stacked against me. Carlisle was the favorite, the golden image they plastered on billboards and commercials. I was just a resident, a woman whose voice could be drowned out by a louder one. Still, something inside me hardened. If he thought I was going to stay silent, he had no idea who I really was. The next morning, whispers ran through the hospital like wildfire. Carlisle's method was being submitted for a national medical award. His face would be on stage, his name in journals. My work, my life's sweat, paraded under his banner. I clenched my fists so tight my nails cut my palms. This wasn't just theft. This was an execution of everything I had built. And then, as I reviewed patient charts, I stumbled across something strange. A case from months ago, Carlisle's signature on a file that didn't add up. Medications misrecorded, symptoms ignored. The patient had died 2 days later. My breath caught. Could it be? I flipped deeper into the records. More discrepancies, more errors, patterns emerging where there shouldn't have been any. And in that moment, the anger shifted inside me. It wasn't just about reclaiming my work anymore. It was about something far bigger, something Carlisle never expected me to find. The files haunted me. Even as I rounded on patients, the numbers and notes played like a ghost reel in my head. Carlisle's signature appeared again and again on records that didn't add up. How many lives had slipped through his negligence? How many families never knew the truth? That night, I sat in the residence lounge with my laptop, the glow burning into my tired eyes. I started cross-referencing charts, lab results, and incident reports. The pattern was unmistakable. Carlisle wasn't just careless, he was covering things up. And worse, the hospital had looked the other way. The next morning, I tested my suspicion. I asked a nurse quietly about one of the patients whose chart Carlisle had signed. She lowered her voice. Yeah, that case was bad. The family wanted answers, but it got swept under the rug. Admin didn't want a lawsuit. Why? I swallowed. Just reviewing. Her eyes searched mine. She knew something was off, but she didn't push. Still, I felt her unspoken warning. Be careful. Because in this hospital, questions were dangerous. Later that day, I caught Carlisle in the physician's lounge. He was laughing with a group of attendings, basking in their praise. When the others left, I walked up. You signed off on patient 0423, the one who coded after misrecorded meds. You knew it, didn't you? He didn't flinch. Patients die, Alara, that's medicine. But if you want to destroy your career chasing ghosts, be my guest. I clenched my teeth so hard it hurt. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. This hospital runs on loyalty. Learn it or you won't last. That night I couldn't sleep. His words echoed, "This hospital runs on loyalty." Loyalty to what? To him? To lies? To a system that silences women who dare to speak up? I stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, my eyes rimmed red from exhaustion and anger. If loyalty means silence, I whispered, then I choose betrayal. From that moment, the plan began forming in my head. If Carlisle wanted loyalty, I would give him exposure. Piece by piece, I would dig out every malpractice he buried and lay it bare for the world to see. But I couldn't do it alone, so I made my first call. To Maya, a nurse I trusted, the only one who had ever stood by me during endless double shifts. "Maya," I said, my voice low, "I need your help. I'm working on something dangerous, and I can't promise it won't get us both burned." There was silence on the line, then her voice steady. "Tell me where to meet." The following night, we met in the empty cafeteria, lights dim, the smell of bleach still clinging to the air. I laid out the files in front of her. Her eyes widened as she read. "Alara, this isn't just negligence. This is malpractice. And if he's been hiding this, then admin knows. They always know." Her words made my stomach churn. She was right. Carlisle wasn't working alone. He was protected, which meant if I went after him, I'd be going after all of them. Maya and I became shadows in our own hospital. By day, I was the same young resident, rushing between ER bays, answering pages, nodding through Carlisle's smug presentations. But by night, when the halls emptied and the fluorescent hum grew louder, Maya and I hunted for ghosts in the records. We started with the ICU. Carlisle's name was on dozens of charts, far more than seemed normal. Some patients had strange medication changes, others had symptoms ignored, all leading to complications. Or worse, Maya whispered as we sifted through files in the dim light of the records room. If half of this is true, Carlisle shouldn't just lose his license, he should be in prison. Her words chilled me, but they also lit a spark. One night, we stumbled across a case that stopped me cold. A teenager, 17. He'd come in with a ruptured appendix. Carlisle had signed off on a discharge before surgery, claiming it was abdominal cramps. The boy died within 24 hours. I stared at the file, my hands trembling. "He killed him," I whispered. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "And the family probably never knew it wasn't just a mistake." I slammed the folder shut. "This isn't just about me anymore. This is about every patient he's buried under lies." The next morning, Carlisle cornered me outside the cafeteria. His eyes were sharp, his smile gone. "You've been asking questions," he said. I froze. "What makes you think that?" "Because whispers travel fast here," he replied, stepping closer. "And if I find out you're sniffing where you don't belong, I'll make sure you never work in medicine again." He leaned in, his breath hot against my ear. "Remember, Alara, loyalty." I forced a smile, hiding the fear boiling inside me. "Of course, Dr. Carlisle." But as soon as he walked away, I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't return from. That night, Maya and I met in her car in the parking garage. Papers spread across the dashboard. The fluorescent lights above flickered, painting us in pale blue. "We can't just sit on this," Maya said. "But if we go to admin, they'll bury it." "I know," I said, tapping the folder. "We need outside eyes, investigators, journalists." Maya bit her lip. "Do you know any?" I hesitated. Then a name surfaced. A friend from undergrad, now a health reporter for the Chicago Tribune. Her name was Lila. I reached out using a burner email. "I have evidence of malpractice at St. Mary's. Patients are dying. If you want the story, meet me." The reply came faster than I expected. "Tell me where." I showed Maya. Her face paled. "If Carlisle finds out?" "He already suspects," I said. "We're running out of time." We set the meeting for Friday night in a quiet cafe near the river. But as the day approached, the tension in the hospital thickened. Carlisle seemed to appear everywhere I turned, smiling too much, watching too closely. And then, on Thursday morning, I found a note in my locker. "Stop digging or you'll be buried next." Friday night came like a storm I couldn't escape. The cafe by the river was quiet, nearly empty. Soft jazz hummed in the background, and rain tapped against the windows. I sat at a corner table with my hood up, clutching a folder of files so tightly the paper edges cut into my palms. At 8:05, Lila walked in. She looked older than I remembered. Her hair pulled into a bun, dark circles under her eyes. She spotted me instantly, and her face softened. "Alara Quinn," she said, sliding into the seat. "It's been a long time." I nodded. Too long, but I wouldn't have reached out if it wasn't life or death. I laid the files in front of her. "Carlisle is covering up malpractice. These are just a fraction. Patients misdiagnosed, mistreated. Families never told the truth." Lila's hands trembled as she flipped through. "Jesus, this could blow up the entire hospital administration." "That's the point," I whispered. "He stole my protocol. He erased me, but more than that, he's hurting people. And nobody will stop him unless someone forces it into the light." Her eyes flicked up to mine. "You know what you're asking, right? Once this goes public, there's no undoing it. They'll come after you." I held her gaze. "They already are." We talked for an hour, the rain outside turning into a steady downpour. Lila promised to cross-check the files, to pull death certificates and medical records. "If we can confirm even 2 or 3 of these cases, it'll be enough to launch an investigation." I felt a flicker of hope for the first time. But as I left the cafe, pulling my hood over my head, I caught something in the reflection of the window. A man in a dark coat standing across the street. Not moving, just watching. My stomach dropped. I quickened my pace down the block, my sneakers slapping against wet pavement. The figure followed, staying just far enough back. Panic surged in my chest. I ducked into an alley, hoping to lose him, my breath coming in ragged bursts. But when I reached the other side, he was there, already waiting. He stepped closer, the rain streaking down his face. I couldn't see his eyes under the brim of his hat, but his voice was low and sharp. "Stop digging, Dr. Quinn." The words hit me like a punch. Before I could respond, he turned and melted into the rain-soaked street, vanishing as if he'd never been there. I stood frozen, soaked, and shaking. The folder pressed to my chest felt heavier than stone. By the time I got home, Maya was waiting. I told her everything, about Lila, the files, the man in the alley. Maya's face went pale. "Carlisle knows you're moving against him. That wasn't a warning. That was a leash tug." I swallowed hard. "Then he's underestimating me, because I don't wear leashes." The staff meeting ended with thunderous applause. Carlisle shook hands with administrators, his smile broadcast like a victory banner. To everyone else, he was the savior of St. Mary's. To me, he was a viper tightening his coils. As people filed out of the auditorium, I slipped into the stairwell with my phone. Maya followed, her face pale. "He's building a fortress," she said. "That committee will bury every case we find." "Then we don't give him the chance," I replied, scrolling to Lila's number. "We go public before he seals the walls." That night, I met Lila in her newsroom office downtown. The place smelled of coffee and ink, the hum of printers steady in the background. She had already pulled patient death certificates and matched them with hospital logs. "This is worse than I thought," she said, spreading files across her desk. "Multiple cases, misdiagnoses, cover-ups. If this hits the Tribune, Carlisle won't just lose his license. He'll be ruined." I felt a surge of grim satisfaction, but Lila's next words made my stomach knot. "Alara, I need one more thing. An insider statement. Someone willing to go on record. Otherwise, the hospital will dismiss this as rumor." My pulse quickened. "You mean me?" She nodded. "Yes, if you're willing." That night, I stared at the ceiling in my tiny apartment. My name in print meant exposure, retaliation, maybe even the end of my career. But it also meant truth. I whispered to myself, if silence protects him, then my voice has to end him. The next day, I told Maya, her face drained of color. "Alara, if you put your name on this, Carlisle will destroy you. Admin will blacklist you. No hospital in Chicago will touch you." I met her eyes. "Then I'll build my life outside their walls. But I won't live knowing I let him keep killing." Maya's eyes softened, filling with tears. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then I'm with you, no matter what." That evening, Carlisle made his next move. He called me into his office, a space lined with awards and glossy photos of him shaking hands with mayors and donors. He gestured for me to sit. "Alara," he began smoothly, "you've been working hard. I see potential in you, and I want to make sure you're rewarded." My stomach turned. "What are you offering?" He smiled. "A fellowship, funded by the hospital, in research. It would put you in the spotlight. Your name in journals, your face in the media." My throat went dry. It was everything I thought I wanted. recognition, a seat at the table. But not like this. I leaned forward. You mean hush money? His smile faltered. Call it what you like, but it's an opportunity, one you'd be a fool to refuse. I stood, my heart hammering. The only thing I refuse is silence. For the first time, his mask cracked. His voice sharpened. Be very careful, Alara. Careers burn fast in this city. I met his glare. So do liars. And I walked out, my hands trembling, but my resolve sharper than ever. The night stretched endless after Lila's text. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every nerve buzzing. Tomorrow I'd either free myself from Carlisle's shadow or chain myself to a storm that could destroy me. At dawn, I walked into St. Mary's with the weight of 1,000 eyes on me. Carlisle was in the lobby, shaking hands with donors. His smile was polished, but his glance at me was razor sharp. He knew I hadn't broken yet. Maya intercepted me near the nurse's station. Did you decide? I nodded. I'm giving Lila the statement. Her lips pressed tight, but she reached for my hand. Then we stand together. That afternoon, I slipped into a quiet office with Lila. She set up her recorder, her hands steady. State your name, position, and what you're alleging, she said softly. I took a breath so deep it felt like I was diving underwater. My name is Dr. Alara Quinn. I'm a resident physician at St. Mary's Medical Center, and I have evidence that Dr. Andrew Carlisle has covered up multiple malpractice cases, leading to patient deaths. The words left my mouth like arrows I couldn't take back. My chest ached, but my spine straightened. For the first time, I felt like I had my voice back. When the interview ended, Lila closed her notebook. We'll publish in 48 hours. That gives me time to verify, get comment from the hospital, and lock the story. 48 hours, just 2 days. I walked out into the Chicago air, the city alive around me. Horns blared, sirens wailed, people hurried past. But for me, time slowed. 2 days until Carlisle's empire cracked open. The next morning, the retaliation began. My pager exploded with false calls. Rooms I hadn't been assigned, consults that didn't exist. Nurses whispered that I'd been careless, rumors Carlisle must have planted. At lunch, my badge stopped working in the cafeteria scanner. Security escorted me out like a criminal. I saw Carlisle in the hallway, grinning like a wolf. Paperwork glitch, he said mockingly. You know how these things happen. That night, I found Maya waiting in the resident lounge, her face grim. They're trying to bury you before the story drops, she said. They'll say you're incompetent. They'll smear your name until no one believes a word you say. I clenched my fists, rage heating my blood. Then we need more, harder evidence, something that can't be spun. Maya hesitated. Then she pulled a flash drive from her pocket. I've been copying incident logs from the ER system. Stuff admin thought they wiped. There's one case you need to see. She slid the drive into my laptop. A file opened. A child, 7 years old. Carlisle had signed off on a medication dose, double the safe amount. The child died within hours. The official record listed complications. I covered my mouth, bile rising in my throat. He killed her, and they hid it. Maya's eyes burned. If you bring this to Lila, there's no way the Tribune can ignore it. Carlisle won't just lose his license. He'll never practice again. Carlisle's shadow stretched across the linoleum floor like a noose. Maya's hand froze on the mouse. My laptop screen still glowed with the damning chart of the 7-year-old girl. If Carlisle took one step closer, he'd see everything. I forced my voice to stay calm, just catching up on charting. He tilted his head, his smile sharp. At this hour, you're dedicated, Dr. Quinn. His eyes flicked to the laptop. For a second, I thought it was over. But then, footsteps echoed down the hall, an attending calling his name. Carlisle lingered, eyes drilling into me. Then he turned and left. My knees went weak the second the door shut. Maya whispered, her voice trembling. He knows, Alara. He doesn't have proof yet, but he knows. I snapped the laptop shut. Then we can't waste another second. This file goes to Lila tonight. We hurried out of the lounge like fugitives. Every shadow in the hospital suddenly a threat. That night, in Lila's cramped apartment, we handed over the flash drive. She plugged it in, her jaw tightening as the files scrolled across her screen. This, she whispered. This is enough to trigger an official inquiry. If I get 2 independent experts to confirm, the Tribune will run it front page. My chest tightened. How long? Tomorrow morning, I'll have the confirmations, Lila said. By tomorrow night, Carlisle's career could be ashes. Maya and I exchanged a look, relief, fear, both at once. But the storm hit faster than we expected. The next day at the hospital, my schedule vanished from the board. My locker was cleared out. An email arrived. You are suspended pending investigation of professional misconduct. My blood went cold. Carlisle had struck first. Maya grabbed my arm in the hallway. They're setting you up. He's accusing you before you accuse him. I swallowed hard. Then we fight louder. That evening, as I walked to my car in the dim parking garage, the world went silent except for my footsteps. I unlocked the door, slid inside, and froze. A folded envelope lay on the passenger seat. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Run while you can. The hospital will never back you, and the dead don't talk. My breath caught. It wasn't just Carlisle anymore. This was bigger. I called Lila immediately, my voice shaking. It's not just Carlisle. Someone else is protecting him. Her reply was steady. Then we expose all of them. But Ilara, you need to understand. If we publish this tomorrow, you're not just risking your job. You're risking your life. I stared out at the dark garage, heart pounding like a drum. He already tried to erase me. If I let him win, I'm already dead. The countdown had begun. By midnight, Carlisle's empire would be splashed across every front page. But the hours leading up to it stretched like a knife pressed against my throat. Maya kept close, her eyes darting every time someone passed us in the halls. Carlisle, meanwhile, acted as if nothing was wrong, laughing with administrators, strolling through the ICU like a king who believed the throne was his forever. But beneath his charm, I could feel it. He knew. That evening, I met Lila again, this time in a quiet diner near the Tribune office. She had a folder thick with printed drafts. We're running it, she said. Editors are backing the story, but Ilara? Her voice dropped. The hospital's legal team has already contacted us. They know something's coming. My stomach nodded. How? Lila shook her head. Someone's feeding them information. You're not just up against Carlisle. You're up against the system protecting him. I swallowed hard. Then we need to hit harder. She slid the folder toward me. Your statement is in print. Once this hits, there's no going back. Later that night, as I walked to my apartment, I noticed the street unusually empty. The city noise seemed muted, too still. Halfway up the block, I realized why. A car idled across the street, headlights off. The hairs on my neck prickled. I quickened my pace, clutching my bag tight. Behind me, the car rolled forward slowly, keeping pace. I broke into a run, fumbling with my keys at the apartment door. The car didn't speed up, didn't honk, just crept past and disappeared into the dark. But the message was clear. We see you. Inside, Maya was waiting. I told her what happened, and she paced the living room, furious. They're trying to scare you into silence. They think intimidation will make you back down. I shook my head. I'm done being scared. But even as I said it, my hands trembled. The next morning, Carlisle made his final move. The hospital released an internal memo accusing me of falsifying patient records and creating dangerous rumors that jeopardized trust in the institution. Copies were taped to bulletin boards across every floor. Nurses stared. Residents whispered. By noon, I was officially labeled a liar. Maya shoved the memo at me, her voice shaking with rage. They're burning you at the stake to save him. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. Then let them. By tonight, the truth burns them back. The photo of Maya glowed on my phone screen, every pixel a threat. My pulse hammered in my ears. This wasn't just intimidation anymore. This was a promise. I called her instantly. She answered on the second ring, her voice casual, unaware. Hey, I'm just heading home. Want me to grab food? Maya, I interrupted, my voice sharp. Get inside. Lock the doors. Don't go anywhere until I get there. Her tone shifted, alarmed. What's wrong? They're watching you. Silence. Then a whispered, Oh my God. I drove like a madwoman through the rain-slick streets, every red light an eternity. By the time I reached her apartment, her blinds were drawn tight. She opened the door only after I whispered our old inside joke from residency. 2 shots of espresso, no sleep. Inside, her hands shook as she bolted the door. What if they hurt me to get to you? They won't, I said, though my own voice shook, because I won't give them the chance. I showed her the email, her face drained of color. Ilara, this isn't Carlisle alone. He's got help. I know, I said, but that doesn't change what's coming tonight. We spent the next hours barricaded in her apartment, checking windows, every sound outside, tightening the knot in my chest. Midnight ticked closer. At 11:42, my phone buzzed. A message from Lila. "It's live." My breath caught. The Tribune article was published. I pulled it up, the headline burning across the screen. Whistleblower doctor exposes malpractice and cover-up at St. Mary's Medical Center. My name, my words, Carlisle's crimes, all laid bare for the world. For a moment, silence wrapped the room. Then Maya let out a shaky laugh. "You did it. It's out." But before relief could sink in, my phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Alara," a voice said smoothly. "Carlisle's. Congratulations. You've made yourself famous. But fame won't keep you safe." My chest tightened. "It's over, Carlisle. Everyone knows now." He chuckled. "You think one article will end me? You underestimate how deep these roots go." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my blood like ice. Maya grabbed my arm. "He's bluffing, he has to be." But I wasn't sure. Carlisle sounded too calm. An hour later, while the city buzzed with the breaking news, the hospital released a statement calling me a disgruntled employee who fabricated lies out of jealousy. They claimed Carlisle was a respected leader, a pillar of medicine. Social media exploded, half calling me a hero, half calling me a liar. And then another notification hit my phone. A news alert. Hospital board announces emergency meeting. Dr. Andrew Carlisle placed on administrative leave pending investigation. My breath left me in a rush. Carlisle was bleeding. But the war wasn't over. The Tribune article was out in the world, and I thought that would be the climax. But I was wrong. The real battle started after midnight. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, lawyers, strangers offering praise, others spitting venom. Social media feeds were a war zone. Hashtags of support alongside ones calling me a fraud. Maya tried to keep me grounded. "Alara, the board put him on leave. That's a victory. You exposed him." I nodded, but unease gnawed at me. Carlisle wasn't the type to vanish quietly. He'd fight. And he had allies who'd protect him. By morning, the hospital was chaos. News crews swarmed the front steps, cameras flashing, staff whispered in corners, administrators huddled in closed-door meetings. I walked through the lobby with my head high, but inside, I felt the tremor of fear. Eyes followed me, some with gratitude, others with hatred. At the nurse's station, Maya whispered, "They're splitting into sides. Half the hospital believes you, half believe him." "Truth doesn't need a majority," I said. But the words felt hollow. At noon, I was summoned to the boardroom. A long mahogany table stretched between me and 7 administrators, their faces stiff. At the head sat the hospital director, a man whose smile was colder than ice. "Dr. Quinn," he began, "your allegations have caused significant disruption. Donors are pulling out. Patients are threatening lawsuits. Do you understand what you've done?" My hands trembled under the table, but I forced my voice steady. "What I've done is tell the truth. What you've done is let Carlisle get away with murder." A murmur ran through the room. The director's jaw tightened. "Careful, doctor. Words like that can destroy you." I leaned forward. "They can also destroy him, and I'm not afraid anymore." That night, Lila called with an update. Her voice was taut with urgency. "Alara, the Tribune piece is trending nationwide, but I just got word. Carlisle is lawyering up, and his attorneys are going to spin this as a personal vendetta. They'll drag your name through every gutter they can find." My stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means your past, your mistakes, anything they can weaponize, they'll use. I thought of every late-night shift I'd stumbled through, every note I'd signed in exhaustion. They'd twist anything into ammunition. Back at Maya's apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, the weight pressing down. "I thought exposing him would be enough," I whispered. "But it's like fighting a hydra. Cut off one head, 2 more appear." Maya sat beside me, her hand firm on mine. "Then we keep cutting. You're not alone in this." Her words steadied me, but only for a moment, because just then, my phone lit up again. A video message, no sender. I tapped it open, and my blood ran cold. On the screen was security footage. Me and Maya in the hospital lounge, the night we'd copied the files. Carlisle wasn't in the frame, but the camera angle was clear. Someone had been watching us all along. The video cut to black. Then words appeared. Truth cuts both ways. The video haunted me. Every frame was proof that Maya and I had been watched, tracked, cornered without even realizing. "Whoever sent this," I whispered, "they want us to know we're prey." Maya paced the living room, her arms crossed tight. It's not just Carlisle. He's got the board, donors, probably half the city's legal machine behind him. This is bigger than him now. I clenched my fists. Then we burn it all down. Him, the system, the silence. If they want a war, I'll give them one. The following morning, the Tribune article snowballed. National outlets picked it up. News anchors repeated my name, my accusations. Carlisle's face flashed across screens everywhere. And yet, the hospital fought back harder. They released doctored documents claiming I'd altered patient charts. Social media split into wildfire arguments. Hashtags calling me Jexi, hero doctor, trended right alongside Parker liar Quinn. Walking through the city felt surreal. Some strangers whispered thanks, others spat insults. I was no longer invisible, but visibility cut both ways. That afternoon, Lila called me to the Tribune office. She had dark circles under her eyes, but fire in her tone. Alara, I traced the metadata of that video you got, she said, pulling up files on her laptop. It wasn't just hospital security. It was routed through a private firm, a crisis management company, hired by St. Mary's. I froze. So the hospital itself is spying on us. Worse, Lila replied. They're building a case. If Carlisle falls, they'll try to take you with him. You'll be the scapegoat. Maya cursed under her breath. They're going to sacrifice her to save themselves. I shook my head, heat flooding me. No, I won't let them. That night, Maya and I scoured the files Lila handed over. We found emails, hospital administrators discussing settlements, instructing lawyers to silence grieving families, burying malpractice payouts in budgets. This is it, I whispered. It's not just Carlisle. It's the whole damn institution. Maya leaned back, exhaling. You're going after all of them. Yes, I said, because if Carlisle burns alone, they'll survive. But if the system burns, maybe, just maybe, something better can grow. The next day, the board held a press conference. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my hood up. Carlisle stepped to the microphone, flanked by lawyers. His face was pale but still smug. These allegations, he said, are the vindictive fabrications of a bitter young resident who sought attention at the cost of patients' trust. I will be vindicated. Boos and cheers erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Carlisle walked off without answering, but for the first time, I saw it. Fear behind his eyes. He knew the walls were closing in. That night, as I reviewed more files, Maya's phone buzzed. She glanced down, her face draining of color. Alara, she whispered. They leaked my address, online. I snatched her phone. It was true. Comments already flooding in, some supportive, others vile, threatening. I pulled Maya close. They want to break us, but we don't break. Still, as the night stretched on, I couldn't stop replaying Carlisle's words in my head. Truth cuts both ways. The court summons lay on the table, its words heavy as iron chains. Defamation, I whispered. They want to crush me in court. Maya's face was pale. This isn't about winning. It's about draining you. Money, energy, credibility. They want to bury you under paperwork until you can't breathe. She was right. Carlisle wasn't just fighting for his license anymore. He was fighting for his survival. And the hospital had chosen him over the truth. The next morning, Lila met me outside the Tribune office with 2 coffees and a grim expression. Alara, lawsuits like this can drag for years, she said. But the good news is, it also keeps the story alive. Every court filing, every motion, becomes more proof that they're trying to silence you. I sipped the bitter coffee, the taste grounding me. So if they want a war of endurance, I'll outlast them. Lila's lips curved into a small, fierce smile. Then let's make sure you don't fight it alone. But Carlisle wasn't slowing down. That afternoon, news broke that he had hired a high-powered PR firm. Suddenly, TV pundits were spinning him as a victim of cancel culture, a brilliant doctor torn down by jealousy. Watching it made bile rise in my throat. They're rewriting reality, I muttered to Maya as the screen blared in the hospital lounge. And people are buying it. She slammed the remote down. Then we give them reality they can't ignore, harder, sharper. That night, I dug deeper into the files. Buried in one email thread, I found something that made my blood run cold. An administrator had written, Carlisle's case with patient 1129 was settled quietly. Ensure records are sealed before the board review. Patient 1129, I cross-checked the code. It was the teenage boy who died from the untreated appendix. I felt my chest tighten. The hospital had knowingly paid off the family to silence them. This wasn't malpractice anymore, it was conspiracy. I sent the email to Lila. Within minutes, she called. Alara, this changes everything. If we can get that family to talk, it won't just be Carlisle. They'll indict the administration. But you need to understand, if you push this, there's no going back. You'll bring the whole institution crashing down. I stared at the screen, the words blurring through my tears. This was bigger than I had ever planned. Bigger than revenge. Maya touched my shoulder. Alara, what do you want? I wiped my face, my voice steady. I want the truth. All of it. The voice on the phone trembled with grief, but also something stronger. Resolve. I arranged to meet her at a small church on the south side. It was quiet there, stained glass windows casting fractured light across the pews. When I walked in, she was already waiting. A woman in her 40s with weary eyes and hands that twisted a crumpled tissue. Dr. Quinn, she asked. Yes, I said softly. You must be Mrs. Alvarez. She nodded, her voice breaking. My son was everything to me. He walked into that hospital with stomach pain, and he never came home. They told me it was complications, but I knew they were lying. My throat tightened. I've seen the files. He should have had surgery immediately. Carlisle sent him home. That wasn't just a mistake. It was negligence, and the hospital covered it up. Tears streaked down her face. I begged for answers. They sent lawyers. They shoved papers at me. I signed because I thought it was the only way to bury the pain. But if there's proof, there is, I said firmly. And if you're willing to stand with me, we can bring it all down. She looked into my eyes, searching for doubt. Then she straightened her shoulders. If it means no other mother goes through what I did, I'll stand. Later, I called Lila, my voice urgent. She's in. Mrs. Alvarez will testify. On the other end, I could hear Lila's exhale of relief. That's the nail in Carlisle's coffin. But Alara, be ready. They'll hit back harder than ever now. Once a family speaks, the hospital can't control the narrative. I knew she was right. This wasn't just a story anymore, it was a reckoning. That night, as Maya and I walked out of the hospital parking lot, I felt something shift. For the first time, I wasn't just a whistleblower. I was part of an army, small, fragile, but growing. But the danger hadn't faded. As we approached my car, a man stepped out of the shadows. The same dark coat, the same brimmed hat I'd seen before. He blocked my path, his voice cold. You don't understand what you're unleashing. This city runs on men like Carlisle. If he falls, you all fall with him. My fist clenched. Then let it fall. He leaned in, his eyes glinting. Careful, doctor. Some wars don't end with truth. They end with funerals. And then he slipped back into the night. Maya grabbed my arm, her breath shaky. Alara, this is escalating. They're not just warning you anymore. They're threatening your life. I stared at the empty street where the man had vanished, my fear mixing with defiance. Then let them threaten. I'm not turning back. The message burned in my mind all day. Meet me tonight. I have information that will finish Carlisle. Come alone. Every instinct screamed it was a trap. Yet something in the phrasing, finish Carlisle, made my pulse quicken. Whoever this was, they knew what I was fighting for. Maya tried to stop me. Alara, you can't go. What if it's Carlisle setting you up? I know, I said, pacing my tiny kitchen. But if it's real, if this is the piece that ends him, I have to. She crossed her arms, her jaw tight. Then I'm coming. I shook my head. No. If something happens, you can't be tied to it. Stay safe. Please? Her eyes glistened, but she didn't argue. The meeting place was an abandoned parking structure on the edge of downtown. Concrete pillars loomed like gravestones, the air damp and echoing. I parked under a flickering light. My heart hammered as footsteps echoed from the shadows. A figure emerged, a man in a rumpled suit, tie loose, face gaunt from sleepless nights. His hands trembled as he held out a folder. You're Dr. Quinn? He asked, voice low. Yes, I whispered. Who are you? Doesn't matter, he said. I worked in risk management for St. Mary's. Carlisle isn't just guilty of malpractice. He's been funneling hospital funds to cover payouts, falsifying financial records. If this gets out, he won't just lose his license. He'll face prison. My hands shook as I opened the folder. Emails, bank transfers, spreadsheets. All pointing to Carlisle as the architect of a cover-up so large it bled into fraud. This is it, I breathed. This is the kill shot. The man's eyes darted around the garage. I can't be seen with you. They'll destroy me too. But I can't live knowing I stayed silent. Before I could respond, he shoved the folder into my arms and disappeared into the night, leaving only the echo of his footsteps. Driving back, my knuckles white on the wheel, I replayed every detail. If the files were real, this was bigger than malpractice. It was corruption on a scale that could topple the hospital itself. But as I pulled up to Maya's apartment, headlights flashed in my rearview mirror. A black SUV followed too closely. I parked quickly, rushing inside with the folder. Maya's eyes widened when she saw me clutching it. What happened? I dropped the folder on the table, papers spilling out. We just got enough to bury him alive. The pounding at the door echoed like a drumbeat of doom. Maya froze, her eyes wide, while I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the folder to my chest. Don't answer it, she whispered. 3 more knocks thundered, harder this time. Then silence. We held our breath, waiting for the sound of splintering wood, but none came. Instead, we heard footsteps retreating down the hall, slow and deliberate, like someone leaving us with a warning. When the silence stretched too long, Maya whispered, "They know we have something." I nodded, my heart racing. And they want us scared enough to destroy it ourselves. The next morning, the story broke again. The Tribune published the financial records from the anonymous informant. Carlisle was accused not only of malpractice, but also of embezzling hospital funds. News anchors said words like fraud, cover-up, criminal charges. Carlisle's face filled every screen, his smirk now a mask of desperation. But the hospital board fought back viciously. They claimed I had fabricated the records, that I planted evidence to smear a respected doctor. A press release called me unstable and dangerously obsessed. Maya slammed the paper down. They're going nuclear. I clenched my fists. Then so do we. That evening, Lila called with urgency. Alara, federal investigators just reached out. They're opening a case. But they need one more piece. Someone inside St. Mary's willing to testify about the financial fraud. Do you know anyone? My mind raced. There was one name. A junior accountant I'd once treated for a panic attack during a long night shift. She had whispered to me back then about strange numbers in the books. Her name's Claire, I said slowly, but if she talks, they'll destroy her life. Lila's voice hardened. If she doesn't, Carlisle might walk free. That night, I tracked Claire down in a tiny apartment above a laundromat. She opened the door cautiously, eyes ringed with exhaustion. Alara, she asked, shocked, why are you here? I held up the folder. Because you know the truth, and because without you, Carlisle gets away. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand, they already threatened me once. They said if I talked, I'd never work in finance again. I stepped closer, my voice steady. Then let's make sure you don't work in silence either. You have the power to end this. Claire stared at me for a long time, torn between fear and conscience. Finally, her hands clenched into fists. I'll testify, she whispered. But if I do this, there's no going back. You're not alone, I said. Not anymore. Carlisle's video replayed in my mind all night. One card left to play. The threat clung to me like smoke, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to strike harder than ever. By morning, the city was buzzing. News outlets speculated on Carlisle's downfall, while hospital spokespeople painted me as a reckless troublemaker. And through it all, Carlisle stayed silent, waiting. Maya paced my apartment. He's planning something big. He wouldn't send that video unless he was ready to drop a bomb. I nodded grimly. We need to find out what his card is, before he plays it. That afternoon, the answer came. Breaking news splashed across every network. Carlisle had filed a countersuit against me, claiming I was the negligent one. The documents were brutal. They accused me of mismanaging patients, falsifying notes, even implying I'd caused unnecessary deaths. I felt the blood drain from my face as Maya read aloud. He's trying to turn everything on you. I whispered. He's not just defending himself. He's trying to erase me. That evening, Lila met us with stacks of papers and fury in her eyes. This isn't just a lawsuit. He leaked confidential patient files, altered to make you look guilty. It's a smear campaign, designed to bury your credibility forever. I slammed my fists on the table. He's accusing me of the very crimes he committed. Lila leaned in, her voice sharp. Then we prove those files are fake. If we can trace the edits, we can show Carlisle tampered with evidence. But it won't be easy. The weight pressed down on me heavier than ever. If Carlisle's lies stuck, not only would I lose the case, I'd lose my career, my reputation, maybe even my freedom. I sat in the dark later that night, staring at my reflection in the window. "How do you fight someone who controls every weapon against you?" I whispered. Maya's voice was steady behind me. "By using the one weapon he can't touch, the truth." I turned to her, tears in my eyes. "Then we need to find it, fast." Just as the clock struck midnight, my phone buzzed with another anonymous email. I opened it with shaking hands. Attached was a set of metadata logs, digital footprints showing exactly when Carlisle had altered the patient files he was now using against me. A single line of text followed. "Use this before he buries you. Signed, a friend inside." The metadata logs glowed on my laptop screen. Undeniable proof that Carlisle had altered patient files. Every timestamp, every digital footprint screamed his guilt. "This is it," I whispered. "This is the thread that unravels everything." Maya leaned over my shoulder, eyes wide. "If we get this into the hands of the investigators, it's game over for him." I shook my head. "Not just investigators. The public needs to see it too. If we let this stay behind closed doors, they'll bury it like they buried everything else." The next morning, I met Lila in a cafe near Tribune Tower. My voice shook as I slid the USB drive across the table. "Verify it, publish it, don't hold back." She nodded grimly. "Once this goes live, there's no turning back. Carlisle won't just come after your job. He'll come after your life." I met her gaze, steel in my voice. "Then let him try." By noon, the Tribune dropped the bombshell. Exclusive. Carlisle accused of fabricating evidence in defamation lawsuit. Screenshots of the metadata filled the article. The public gasped. Social media erupted. Carlisle fraud trended within hours. For the first time, it wasn't my word against his. It was digital truth, cold, sharp, and undeniable. But Carlisle wasn't finished. That evening, he held a press conference. His face was pale but defiant, his voice trembling with anger. "These so-called files are forgeries. I am the victim of a witch hunt led by a jealous resident who cannot accept her failures." Reporters shouted questions, but his words fell flat. You could see it in the shifting eyes of his lawyers, in the unease of the board members flanking him. The mask was cracking. That night, my phone buzzed with a new message, from Claire, the junior accountant. "Alara," she whispered when I picked up. "They're shredding documents. Right now, financial ledgers, payouts, anything that ties Carlisle to fraud. If we don't stop them tonight, it'll all vanish." My stomach twisted. "Where?" "The sub-basement archive at St. Mary's. They brought in security to keep people out." Maya grabbed her jacket without hesitation. "We're going." "Are you insane?" I asked. "They'll be guarding it." Her eyes were fierce. "Then we go in anyway. If they destroy those files, all we've done won't matter." I looked at the USB drive, the Tribune article glowing on my phone, and felt the weight of the moment. We'd lit the fire, but now we had to keep it burning. The alley behind St. Mary's smelled of damp concrete and diesel. The faint hum of generators vibrated underfoot, and light spilled in fractured beams from the basement windows. Maya crouched low beside me. "2 guards at the back entrance," she whispered. I peeked around the corner. She was right. 2 men in dark uniforms smoked cigarettes near the door, their radios crackling softly. "Going through them is suicide," I murmured. "We need another way." Maya smirked, pulling a small keycard from her pocket. "Remember when I said I used to date a tech guy in maintenance? He owed me." Before I could ask, she swiped the card on a side door hidden in the shadows. The lock clicked. Inside, the air was cooler, sterile with the faint tang of bleach. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long, sharp shadows across endless corridors. We crept down the hall, footsteps muffled on linoleum. Every sound seemed amplified, the creak of a vent, the distant slam of a door. Finally, we reached the archive. Through a narrow glass window, I saw them, 3 men in suits, shredding papers in industrial machines, boxes of files stacked high around them. "This is it," I whispered. "They're erasing the truth." Maya's jaw clenched. "Not if we stop them." We slipped inside, ducking behind a row of file cabinets. The whir of shredders filled the air. My pulse thundered as I spotted a half-filled box labeled Financial Records, 2018-2021. I pointed to it. Maya nodded. We crawled closer, the noise masking our movements. My hands trembled as I pulled the box toward us, slipping a few files into my bag. But then, One of the men turned. His eyes narrowed. "Hey, who's there?" Chaos erupted. Maya shoved the box into my arms. "Run!" We bolted down the hallway, papers spilling from the folder as footsteps thundered behind us. Shouts echoed, radios blaring, intruders in the archive. We rounded a corner, nearly colliding with a security guard. He reached for his baton, but Maya slammed the door shut between us, buying precious seconds. "Stairs! There!" I gasped, pointing. We sprinted upward, lungs burning, hearts pounding. We burst into the night air through a side exit, alarms wailing behind us. The SUV from before screeched into the alley, headlights blinding. "Get in," a voice shouted. It was Claire, the accountant. Her face was pale but determined. Maya and I leapt into the back seat as she floored the gas. Tires screamed against pavement, and the SUV shot forward into the dark city streets. The SUV roared down empty streets, headlights slicing through the dark. I clutched the stolen files as if they were oxygen, my mind spinning with Claire's words. "The whole board?" I whispered. Claire's eyes flicked to me in the mirror. "Every single one." Carlisle wasn't just covering his own mistakes. He was the fall guy. They've all been funneling money, burying malpractice cases, silencing families. He's dirty, but he's not alone. Maya swore under her breath. So Carlisle was never the real prize. The entire hospital is rotten. My pulse quickened. Then we don't just take down Carlisle, we take down the board. Back at Maya's apartment, we spread the files across the table. Spreadsheets, ledgers, confidential memos. They painted a picture darker than I imagined. Millions diverted, settlements hidden, signatures from every board member. "This isn't a hospital," I said, my voice shaking. "It's a criminal enterprise with a medical facade." Claire's hands trembled as she pointed at one memo. "See that? They even paid off inspectors to look the other way. If you go after them, you'll have the city government against you too." I stared at her, my chest tight. "So the truth isn't enough?" "It's enough," Maya said firmly. "But we'll have to fight like hell to make it stick." The next morning, the Tribune dropped another story, this time hinting at systemic corruption within St. Mary's. The headline stopped short of accusing the board directly, but the implication was clear. Social media went nuclear. Protesters gathered outside the hospital with signs reading, "Patients over profits," and "Justice for 1129. But then came the counterstrike. The hospital's lawyers filed a motion claiming the stolen files were obtained illegally, accusing me and Maya of trespassing, theft, and obstruction. They wanted us prosecuted. I sat in Lila's office, my hands shaking as I gripped a cup of bitter coffee. "They're cornering us," I muttered. "If they paint me as a criminal, everything we've done falls apart." Lila leaned forward, her voice sharp. "Then we get ahead of them. If you testify publicly, with Alvarez beside you, with Claire, you'll shift the tide. People trust faces more than files." The thought terrified me, to stand in front of cameras, to expose myself completely. But I also knew she was right. "This isn't about survival anymore," I whispered. "It's about justice." That night, as I prepared notes, Maya placed a hand on my shoulder. "Alara, once you speak, there's no going back. You'll either be the hero who toppled them, or the villain they destroy." I met her eyes, determination hardening in my chest. "Then let's make sure I'm the hero." Cliffhanger ending for Part 19. The next morning, the press gathered in a storm outside City Hall. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and the crowd buzzed with restless energy. I stepped up to the podium, my heart hammering. "This is bigger than one man," I began, my voice steady. "Carlisle was only the beginning. The truth is—" And then a voice from the crowd cut through the noise. "Liar!" I froze as I saw him. Carlisle himself, pushing through the reporters, his eyes blazing with fury. Carlisle's voice cut through the crowd like a knife. Cameras swung toward him, reporters surged forward, and in an instant the press conference became a battlefield. He pointed at me, his face twisted with rage. "She's a liar. She's destroyed this hospital with her vendetta. Look at her, hungry for attention, desperate for fame." My pulse hammered, but I forced myself to stand taller. I leaned into the microphone, my voice steady. "I don't need fame. I need justice. And justice means telling the truth, no matter how many people it threatens." The crowd buzzed. Some shouted in support, others in doubt. Carlisle sneered, stepping closer. "You think anyone will believe you over me? I've saved lives for 30 years. Who are you? A nobody. I met his eyes, my anger sharpening into steel. I'm the doctor who refused to stay silent. And now the world knows what you've done. At that moment, Claire and Mrs. Alvarez stepped forward from the side of the stage. Claire held up a folder of untouched financial records. Mrs. Alvarez clutched a framed photo of her son. The cameras flashed wildly. Claire's voice rang out. I worked in the accounting department. I saw the fraud with my own eyes. Mrs. Alvarez's voice cracked, but it carried across the square. My son died because of Carlisle's negligence. They tried to buy my silence, but I will never be silent again. The crowd erupted. Reporters shoved microphones closer. Carlisle's face drained of color. Suddenly, shouts came from the back. Federal agents pushing through the crowd. Badges flashed. One stepped onto the podium. Dr. Andrew Carlisle, you are under arrest for fraud, obstruction of justice, and multiple counts of malpractice. Gasps spread like wildfire. Carlisle sputtered, turning red. This is a mistake. I built this hospital. But the handcuffs snapped shut. The cameras captured everything. The mighty surgeon dragged away in disgrace. In the chaos, I stepped back, trembling. Maya grabbed my hand, grounding me. Lila caught my eye from the press crowd and gave the smallest nod. It was over, or at least Carlisle was finished. The board would face investigations, trials, their empire crumbling piece by piece. The city couldn't ignore it anymore. And me, I had survived. Weeks later, I stood outside St. Mary's, its windows dark. The hospital temporarily shut for review. Protest signs still littered the ground. Maya came up beside me. You did it, she whispered. I shook my head softly. We did it. Claire, Alvarez, Lila, you. None of this would have happened if we hadn't stood together. The autumn wind blew crisp across the city streets. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Do you regret it? Maya asked quietly. I looked at the shuttered building, the place that had tried to erase me, and smiled faintly. No, because sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the rot. And that's what we did. My name is Ilara Quinn. I was nearly silenced, nearly erased, but the truth lived, and so did I.